Hello, my name is Owen Harris and I'm the director of Explore Deep. We make games and virtual reality experiences at the nexus of art, science, and playfulness for the health and mental well-being of our players. This is my colleague, Isabela Granic.
Hi, I'm Isabela Granic, and I'm a professor in the Netherlands, and I study developmental psychopathology, and we generally do the science around the kinds of interventions that work for young people and adults, in particular preventing anxiety and depression and promoting mental health and emotional resilience.
Today, we're going to be talking to you about our first project in collaboration, Deep. But before we begin, let's take a few breaths together. We'll do 3 breaths and synchronize with this beautiful plant. In and out. In and out. One more. In and out. Back in 2013, I was having an exceptionally challenging year. My anxiety was at a peak, and my depression was consuming. It was within this space where I was lucky enough to have the support and the resources to transform this experience into art, that I became infatuated with the idea of building an interactive and reactive meditation chamber. I was really interested in creating an underwater world, a world that you could sink into and that would react to your breath. I built a crude prototype of this, and to my great fortune, I was connected with my creative partner, Nikki Smit, in the Netherlands. Together, in the fabulous and psychedelic underwater world of Deep, as you inhale, you rise up in the waters, and as you exhale, you float slowly back down to the ocean floor. You explore caves and caverns and meet wonderful creatures down there. As you breathe, the world lights up with you, opens and closes in time with your breath. We've been lucky enough to tour this work all over the world at art and science festivals. And we gathered a lot of media attention in that initial first push. It was through that attention that we were able to team up with the wonderful Radboud Institute, who have taken on the hard work of studying the efficacy and how we can deploy this game to be helpful in the sphere of mental health. Isabela will talk to you about that now.
I've been working around trying to find the best kinds of interventions and programs that work for young people to prevent anxiety and depression. And we're particularly worried, and we care particularly about anxiety and depression because it's the #1 mental health problem that young people and adults also experience. So 1 in 4 people, by the time they reach the age of 18, will have been diagnosed with either anxiety or depression. 1 in 4. That means either you yourself are suffering right now, or you know somebody very close to you that has suffered. And so this was a really, really important goal of ours for the last decade or so. And the particularly difficult part about this is that most interventions, most conventional interventions, are not working for most people. And in particular, these e-mental health interventions that a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists have moved towards, especially during pandemic times, there's lots and lots of research and data that are showing that they don't work for most people. And so this is really, really problematic. And so I met Owen and Nikki at a time where I was at my wit's end trying to find something that was innovative, new, interesting that would kind of enliven our science in a way that I haven't found otherwise. And we found deep. And after experiencing deep for about 5 minutes, I immediately realized that this is an incredibly new and important experience that might have an impact on mental health in a way that we hadn't otherwise. So what we did was we teamed up together, and we've run a whole set of studies. Joannika Werdemeister is the PhD student who led this set of studies. And basically what we've done is tried to look at the efficacy of deep in a whole bunch of contexts. And I'm just going to summarize one of our last large studies. And we looked at the difference between people who experienced deep around 4 times versus people who did a breathing app. And the first finding that we had was that both people who used a regular breathing app that encouraged them to take deep diaphragmatic breaths, and people who were experiencing deep dropped in their anxiety levels after 10 minutes of working on these kinds of apps. But what was incredibly important when we compared these two groups is the differences we found. And that one of the biggest differences is that only in deep did we see that users had an increase in their sense of self-efficacy. So they started to believe in the fact that they could themselves use their own breath to decrease their own anxiety levels. And this was outside of the context necessarily of the game. They also increased in their sense of coping resources. They felt like they could cope with their everyday anxiety. This was not the case with regular apps. And so we were really incredibly encouraged by this. And this was only after 10 minutes. After 4 sessions, we saw that this higher sense of self-efficacy and these resources to cope predicted improvements in anxiety, even 3 months after they had stopped playing the game. So you can imagine our delight in these findings. And so right now, we're really interested in how much it generalizes not only within this game experience, but also outside of the game experience. And we're doing continued research around this. And really, the important thing for me is that I don't think anymore that we can just think about technology as this sort of objective, scientific, evidence-based practice that we sort of foist upon people. I think the experience of aesthetics and art is absolutely necessary when we think about interventions for mental health. Leo Tolstoy said, "Real science studies and makes accessible that knowledge which people at that period of history think important. And real art transfers this truth from the domain of knowledge to the domain of feelings." And this is what I think deep does exceptionally well. Owen?
Thank you so much, Isabella. I'm going to speak really briefly about the future of the project. So up until this point, deep has existed in art galleries, festivals, and scientific laboratories. But we're working really hard at the moment to develop deep for the Oculus Quest so that people for the first time can have it at home. That will be launching early next year. In addition to that, we're expanding out the scientific research, working with the NHS over in the UK to investigate deep's application in agoraphobia, PTSD, as well as recovery from COVID and regaining one's lung capacity after that virus. We're also working with the Brave Institute in the US, who are going to explore its efficacy as an intervention for teenagers with PTSD, as well as other health institutes around the world. If you're interested in following our work, both in the upcoming launch for the Oculus Quest, as well as the scientific research that's ongoing, please go to exploredeep.com, where you'll be able to sign up for our newsletter, as well as find our Instagram, where we post regular updates there. Thank you so much for your time, and we are so excited to give you all access to deep in your own home. Thank you.
Thank you.